Have you ever had an entire argument in your head before the other person has even replied? You have won the argument, you have delivered a devastating comeback, ruined the relationship, and then realized that none of it actually happened. Or someone doesn't reply for 6 hours, and suddenly you have decided that they don't care about you, the relationship is doomed, and you're going to be absolutely fine without it or without them. And then you tell yourself, I genuinely don't care. I don't care about that anymore. While checking their last scene, their Instagram following, if it went up by one following or not, and conducting an investigation that truly deserves a warrant. I think the human brain is incredibly talented at turning one small piece of information into an entire Netflix series. But there's what I found a really interesting thing about it. The emotion is real, the conclusion might not be. You can genuinely be angry without the other person actually being your enemy. Or you can genuinely be really scared without something terribly actually being about to happen. You can feel rejected without actually being rejected. So, what do you do in this little gap between feeling something and deciding what it means? That's where this comes in handy. I found it a couple of years ago, and I don't think it's really some magical formula. I'm not trying to sell you anything. It just tells how emotionally evolved you are or how you can be. But honestly, I found it to be a really useful way of telling myself that, okay, take a breath, and what is actually going on with me right now? To realize that you need to take a breath. So let's find out more about it. So, a few years ago, especially when I was going through my own healing journey, I realized I had a tendency to go to emotional extremes. Things were very black or very white for me. Sometimes it was either amazing or it was just too terrible. Something either worked or it was like a complete disaster. I either really wanted something or I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. And I think a huge part of that came from not really understanding that two things can be true at the same time. It takes a lot of time to understand that. You can love someone and still know that they are not good for you. You can be disappointed in someone and still understand where they are coming from. You can fail at something and still be good at what you do. You can be angry with someone without deciding that they're an awful human being. And honestly, learning to live in that gray area has been one of the biggest changes in me. It has, because earlier I would feel something very intensely and immediately and treat that feeling like a fact. And that's where this pyramid became useful for me. I actually had it as a wallpaper for my phone for some time. Now, what does this pyramid really mean? This is called emotional frequency pyramid, and it's based on David R. Hawkins' scale of consciousness. The model basically places different emotional states on a scale, as you can see, scaling from shame and fear, some lower end frequencies, and all the way up to love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And just to be clear, when I say frequency, I'm talking about the way this particular model describes emotional states. I'm not saying that scientists have put you in a lab and measured your anger at 150. That's not really why I use it also. For me, it's more like an emotional map just a better way to understand where I'm standing. And the simplest way I've understood this entire pyramid is that at the bottom, you are reacting, in the middle, you are choosing, and at the higher levels, you are responding. And there's actually a difference, even though it doesn't sound, but there's a difference. When you are reacting, the emotion is in the driving seat. Something happens, you feel something, and you immediately act from that feeling. When you are choosing, you notice the feeling and create a little bit of space, the space we were talking about, before you decide what to do. And when you are, what we said, responding, when you're responding, you're able to look at the situation with enough distance that you're responding to what actually happened, not just to the story your emotion has created around it. And that little gap can change a lot. It can change a lot of things. It's too hot in Mumbai. Let's start at the bottom. You have emotions like shame, guilt, fear, and pride. And I don't think the point here is that these emotions are evil and we should somehow meditate them out of our existence. No. They're human emotions. The problem is what happens when they start making all your decisions for you. See, your guilt, there's one thing guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Then there is shame. Shame says there is something wrong with me. And those are very, very different things. You can make a terrible decision and learn from it. But when that becomes, I am a terrible person, I always ruin everything, I am just like this, you stopped looking at your behavior and started attacking your own identity. And that's a very easy spiral to get into. I have gotten into the spiral so many times, so many times. Then there's fear. Fear is actually really good. It's really good at making things feel certain. Someone doesn't reply, your brain doesn't says, interesting, we don't have enough information yet, blah blah. No. What does your brain say? Just think about it. Does it say they're losing interest, or something happened, or they're going to leave, or I knew this would happen, I predicted it? And suddenly, you have created an entire future from one unread message to I don't know where. The brain really, really does love the plot, I must say. And fear isn't necessarily bad. Fear is trying to protect you from any kind of hurt. The problem is when fear starts driving the car. That's when the problem starts. And that was a very huge issue with me. And then there's anger. Again, anger is fascinating because it can make you feel incredibly clear. Suddenly, you know exactly who's wrong. You know exactly what you're going to say. You know exactly what they deserve, and you feel like sending that paragraph is going to be like the most empowering, the most empowering thing you've ever done. And then you read the same paragraph the next morning and think, oh, maybe we shouldn't have said that. Because anger can give you a momentary confidence without necessarily giving you the perspective about the real situation. And then the most dangerous one, pride. You don't text first because I know my worth. You don't apologize because I'm not going to lower myself. You refuse to admit you were wrong because I just have boundaries. Sometimes that's genuinely self respect, but sometimes it's just ego in a very good outfit, properly well dressed. And I've definitely had to learn the difference. Now comes the turning point. We talked about the lower aspects. The turning point comes with courage. Okay, and something really interesting happens here. At some point, you stop being completely controlled by the emotion and start becoming aware of it. And that's where courage comes in. Because courage doesn't mean you are no longer scared. It means fear is no longer making the decision for you. You are scared, but you go to that audition. Okay. You are embarrassed, but you apologize. You are hurt, but you have the conversation with the other person. You are um, terrified that something won't work out, but you try it out anyway. And I think so much of growing up is basically learning how to do things while being uncomfortable. You don't suddenly wake up one morning and become this incredibly confident, emotionally evolved person. That is not going to happen. Sometimes courage is just that this is uncomfortable, I'm afraid of this, but I'm going to deal with it anyway. And that's a huge shift. Now, let's come to the next part. As we're going from bottom to up, we should also learn some other things. Like after courage, you move into things like willingness, neutrality, acceptance, and reason. And this is where I think the pyramid becomes much more practical. Because now you're not just asking, what am I feeling? You're also asking, what am I going to do with it? So, for example, if you talk about willingness is like, okay, I know this needs to change. I'm willing to do something about it. And then neutrality is like, I don't actually need to decide that this is amazing or this is terrible right now. And this one has been particularly important for me because sometimes we desperately want answer, like any answer. Is this person good or bad? Was this decision right or wrong? Did I fail or did I succeed? Is this going to work or is it over? And sometimes the healthiest answer is simply, I don't know yet. And no matter how much you talk to ChatGPT, you are not going to get that answer until you live your life. And even if you have to stay in the gray, you have to learn to sit in the gray, to be okay without any answer. It's important for your own growth. And then next comes acceptance. And I think people misunderstand a lot about this one. Acceptance doesn't mean approval, first of all. You can accept that something happened without thinking thinking what should have happened. You can accept that someone doesn't love you without thinking that you are unlovable. You can accept that something didn't work out without deciding that you are a failure. Please. You can accept that you can't control another person's behavior. And sometimes acceptance is just, I don't like this, but I'm going to stop fighting the fact that this is happening. Because honestly, arguing with the reality is exhausting. That is the only answer I have for you. It's sometimes just too exhausting. And then let's get to the higher part. Things like love, joy, peace, and eventually enlightenment. And I don't want to make this sound like the goal is to become some permanently serene person who never gets annoyed in traffic, a sadhu sant in Himalaya. No, because that is not happening. At least not for me. I still get angry. I still overthink. I still go in shame and guilt sometimes. Sometimes I get insecure. I still have moments where my emotional intelligence clocks out for the day. And the difference is that I think we have a little more space between what I feel and what I do. This space, that's probably the biggest change that I've noticed in myself in the last couple of years. I don't necessarily have fewer difficult emotions. That's not what I'm saying. I'm still human. I just recover from them much more differently. My perspective has changed. My way to look at things and to react to them has changed significantly. And then there's one thing I think is really important. If you ever use something like this pyramid, oh God. So what was I saying? Yeah, don't use it to judge people. Please, don't think if someone is angry that you're going to judge them now. Oh, you are operating at 150, I'm operating at 500. We are not at the same frequency because congratulations, you have just reached right while talking about enlightenment. And I think that's exactly why this shouldn't be a hierarchy thing that who's better or who's worse. It's just a tool for self awareness. It's not a superiority competition. So, how do I actually use this? It's actually very simple. Whenever I feel like everything is going out of control, I try to pause and ask myself, okay, where am I operating from right now? Am I scared, angry? Am I trying to prove something? Am I hurt? Am I reacting because I want to protect myself? Or am I actually looking at the situation clearly? One of the most important questions. And honestly, sometimes it works, sometimes it absolutely doesn't. Sometimes I know exactly where I am on the pyramid and still make the stupidest decision. That's also okay. Again, reminding you, you are still human, you are not AI. This isn't a competition. You're not supposed to become this permanently enlightened person who handles every situation perfectly. Your life is not a math equation. For me, the real change has been that I can catch myself a little earlier now. Maybe I am angry, but I don't send the paragraph. Maybe I am scared, but I immediately do an assessment of the worst. Maybe I am hurt, but I don't turn that hurt into resentment. I think that that's what pyramid has really given me. It's a little bit of space between what I feel and what I choose to do. Because the person I was a couple of years ago, it isn't the person who I am now. I still feel all the same messy, inconvenient, very human emotion. I just don't let all of them decide who I am anymore. And maybe that's what growth actually looks like. Not not becoming someone who never falls into the bottom of the pyramid, just becoming someone who notices when she's there and knows how to find her way back. So I'm actually curious. Where do you think you're operating from right now? Maybe it's fear, maybe it's anger, maybe it's pride, maybe you have become pretty good at sitting in the gray. I think I already know mine. I'll comment mine. And let's see where this journey takes us. Thank you if you listen till the end. I'll come back with some new concepts again. And I hope the heat in Mumbai, sorry, not the heat actually, the weather has been pretty good, but the humidity in Mumbai gives us a rest, please. So that's it. Bye bye.